Hello again, Sandy here. Welcome to this fifth session on the fifth Brandenburg Concerto as we continue our journey through the six great Brandenburg concertos by Johann Sebastian Bach. As well as getting to know this great concerto this time, I want to talk about these three things: where Bach was working at the time that he composed them, that's the court at Köthen; what his employer was like, this is Prince Leopold; and I'd like to talk quite a lot about the way that Bach writes for the harpsichord, which wasn't, by that point, a solo instrument in the way that we think of a keyboard instrument these days. Certainly not in a group setting. So those will be our three things in this session. And this is how the fifth Brandenburg Concerto gets underway. So we're in the key of D major, and we've got that wonderfully Italianate repeated note theme, which I say Italianate and repeated notes because the way that the theme proceeds with doubled notes is something that's really well suited to the violin's down and up bow. Rather than being on the keyboard. In fact, if we look at the scoring for this concerto, we have flauto traverso. This really is a flute, and then rather than a recorder, we've got the violino principale, so we've got the solo violin, and we've got the cembalo concertato, that's at the bottom of the score. And then we've only got one violin part, one viola part, one cello part, one violone, that's the double bass part. So within the ripieno group, there's only one violin rather than the first violin and the second violin, which you always normally find. So maybe the violino principale is the first violin, who's really stepping up to play something, as we'll hear, much more ornamented and grand than his colleague, the other violinist. So let me focus, as promised, on where Bach was when he wrote this music at Köthen. So the Köthen court was presided over by the music-loving Prince Leopold. So let me tell you a little bit about him. After leaving kind of Eton, the Prussian version of Eton, the Ritter Academy, which is a school for young princes, in 1710, he'd gone on the Grand Tour, taking in the Netherlands, England and Italy, enjoying opera, art, architecture, books. And we know, because of repair and rental bills, that Leopold played the harpsichord as well. And for some of his time in Italy, he was accompanied by Johann David Heinichen, who was Kapellmeister at the Electoral Court in Dresden. And that was a really, really big court with a very grand musical setup. In fact, Heinichen went to study with Vivaldi down there in Venice, which Bach never did. So Leopold was really part of all that world. He knew and loved music. And that's Bach's quote, because Bach later in life referred back to Leopold as someone who both loved and knew music. So what